Hello and welcome to the 5th episode of the Meet the Entrepreneur podcast. This is ARTEEN ZAHIRI, and I am the co-host of this feature along with RUMEER KESHWANI. Today we'll be interviewing Piper Foster Wilder, the founder and CEO of 60Hertz microgrids. 60Hertz is a maintenance software company based in Anchorage, Alaska. With this venture, Piper is committed to creating meaningful work for all people and enabling a transition to renewable energy while economizing the diesel that some must use. We are excited to get started. So to start off, Piper, do you want to maybe explain to our audience what is 60 Hertz microgrids in your words? How did the idea come about and what led you to pursue this venture?
Sure. So 60 Hertz is a microgrid maintenance software. And people often hear monitoring when we say maintenance, so I'll just pause to make that really clear. 60 Hertz is maintenance software, which means we help people with the tasks of maintaining an asset, particularly energy generation equipment. That can be everything from recording temperatures to validating that there isn't grease that's spilled or oil that's spilled. It can be, in a solar example, making sure that vegetation hasn't grown up too high around a solar panel. It can be cleaning out the penstock of a hydropower turbine. It can be climbing into the nacelle of a wind turbine and performing regular preventative maintenance tasks. So 60 Hertz as a microgrid maintenance software has a special niche, and that is offline first, which means our software is not dependent on cloud connectivity or strong communications. And second of all, is designed for people that may not have a high sense of literacy, that may meet the ADA definition of needing an accessible user interface. Or in other cases, maybe an individual who's not very well trained on the energy asset that they're responsible for, but ultimately do need to be the first line of defense to keep track of these assets. You know, as we're all excited about more renewable energy coming online, and particularly rural electrification in what are known as energy access grids or emerging markets, not very much thought is given to how a village, a community, or a remote technician will look after these assets long after the ribbon cutting ceremony. But if we're really going to achieve the full lifespan of solar, batteries, wind of 25 to 30 years, then our software starts when the ribbon cutting lets off. Mm-hmm. So I decided to start the company because I'm from Colorado. I had been living and working in Aspen for some time, and upon getting married, came to Alaska with my husband and was totally unfamiliar with the concept of a microgrid. I have worked in renewables my whole career, and I thought, what is this crazy new thing, a microgrid? And it is basically a small electricity grid that is making energy for a small community usually, or a remote industrial site, in that case at large scale, using diesel and increasingly solar, wind, batteries, etc. So Alaska, your listeners may know, has 200 remote native communities. These are indigenous Alaska native communities. Mm-hmm. And they're disconnected from a road or a pipeline. And so the way we provide energy in these remote communities is through a microgrid. This has happened in Alaska since the 50s. Microgrid is a recent term of art, but we in Alaska have just always known it as the good old diesel powerhouse. But there are issues with maintaining these assets. And so, frankly, I started the company because I was pissed off. I thought, why isn't the state doing more to help remediate and alleviate the reliance on diesel energy? Because it is so expensive for these remote communities that don't have very much of an income anyway. We're paying, whereas in an urban place where you and I live, we're likely to pay between 10 and 15 cents a kilowatt hour. The minimum for most of these communities is closer to 35 cents. And we have 10 communities in the state that are paying $1 a kilowatt hour, which is absolutely yielding energy poverty. So I started the company to be a bridge between financiers and remote renewable sites where the project scale was too small to do due diligence on. However, ultimately the company evolved in response to early investors' concerns that they could place that capital to put in wind and solar in these remote communities, but they weren't sure who would maintain the assets, and therefore would that investment be protected. And so we said, sure, no problem. We'll just get a typical computerized maintenance management software. That's the sector that we're now competing in. But we sat in on 15 product demos for these other maintenance software solutions, and none of them were a fit, even remotely. It would not work for our users. First, because virtually all maintenance software is designed for an urban place, an office building, multi-story downtown, high rise where you've got screaming internet. But when you get to remote places, you don't have that level of connectivity. So what good is a cloud-based software? And when it comes to an hour-based maintenance task, you need to have that connectivity, or at least an algorithm that's smart enough to think around it. So that was a place that we knew we could innovate and compete. And second of all, we thought the user interface was lacking on the part of most of our competitors, that it was really small font, probably better for a building engineer, certainly not for a remote individual, certainly not for someone who hadn't seen an optometrist or couldn't recently. But there were just a number of somebody who's colorblind wouldn't work well with a lot of the prevailing maintenance software. And yet, if you think about who maintenance personnel often are, and particularly in remote places, these are individuals who would certainly benefit from a much clearer user interface. So that's the market niche that we've crafted.
Awesome. Nice. So when you first had the idea, you moved out to Alaska and you saw there was this need. What was kind of the first steps in actually building the company? Like, how did you know who to reach out to, who to speak with, and how to build, I guess, kind of your team to start executing on the vision?
Yeah, so I started the company primarily with an obsession that felt like falling in love with someone and pulling the longest all-nighter weeks of my life. We had, I had been working for a nonprofit. I helped start a company in Aspen before I moved to Alaska. So I had some idea about like what a startup looked like. But I had at that point downshifted in my life and was like enjoying the first year of being married and worked for a renewable advocacy nonprofit here, and got to know a ton of people in the space. I was the membership director. It was a perfect job to just like meet a million people and understand more about this problem space, even though that hadn't been my goal. But like I said, I had some hubris. I thought I could do it better than other people. And I was kind of pissed off. And I was like, oh, I think we need to do more about this diesel dependence. So about a year and a half into that job with the nonprofit, the whole idea of 60 Hertz just like blossomed in my mind, and I was obsessed. That was what I fell in love with. And so I started working late at night, giving up every weekend for it, and just, building the concept. And what I would say is, those early days were all about PowerPoint decks. I built so many PowerPoint decks. It was all about just like selling a vision and selling an idea, and not even selling it at that point. It was just communicating to other people what I wanted to do. And this idea of raising capital and helping place the capital, raising a fund, ultimately a software product, was really hard for people to understand. So that took some explanation. My husband is a commercial photographer, a wonderful photographer, and his work largely helped me depict the story. And I said for a long time that the only thing 60 Hertz was different PowerPoints of my husband's images. Anyway, finally, we were able to help people sell the story then. That was April of 2017. I got investment from Launch Alaska. I raised additional funds from friends and family, modest money, not a huge sum, just enough to kind of hire a little team and get started. Whitney Gant is my co-founder. Ultimately, Tanya James came aboard and is now a co-founder. And these were people that had been in my life or that I knew that I could, work with, and that we thought we would have a chance to explore this. I think often early on in accelerator programs in particular, people just drum into you how likely it is that you're going to fail statistically. And I didn't believe any of that for a second. I mean, I've been always very nervous. I have not been nervous. I have always been very alert to that, but never nervous about it. I think it's some combination of divine grace, luck, and just hard work. Just the hardest work to make any of this happen. So by 2018 we had the fortune, and this was again a major positive step of success that has helped us get on our feet, is we picked the right partners. So a utility company in the state that felt the pain point of not being able to manage their 150 remote employees, who are these remote power plant operators, they understood our problem. And so I had an internal champion that I just stumbled upon in that company, in that utility, that vouched for this idea, that said, we need this software, let's be part of the pilot. Happily, we ended up with a circle of other entities too that believed in the concept, knew they felt that pain point, and were willing to come with us in this lean startup, like quick prototype of the product that we released in 2018.
That's great. And given the nature of the business and the value proposition, can you talk about if you've received any kind of or what your relationship has been with the state and local governments, and if you guys have gotten any support from them, or what your relationship is with them?
Working with the state of Alaska was, I thought, going to be much easier than it has proven to be. The state of Alaska helps something like 80 of the 200 communities that don't have a real utility. And so the state will basically bear the cost of flying out to this community or sending needed supplies if necessary. And our platform helps reduce and economize that effort and those costs. I assumed it would be easy. It hasn't been. I think bureaucracy is what it is, and it's been disappointing. But I also respect the individuals that are my counterparts there, and I think they're working within a pretty difficult structure too.
Yeah, absolutely. And how have things changed for you as a business, given obviously the COVID-19 pandemic? I'm sure the state and local governments are at the forefront, focused on that right now. How's your business been affected by it?
So the COVID from the get-go, I knew we would have to spin as an opportunity and be super alert on how to respond, because in the early days, nobody had any idea. What has ultimately come through for us is actually just spelling a lot of opportunity. So gratefully, the Office of Naval Research, we applied and they awarded us a significant grant to start developing a subproduct for ventilator maintenance. So our technology is agnostic in terms of what the asset is that we're helping maintain. The label we put under ourselves and the domain expertise is in energy, but our software is flexible to accommodate a troubleshooting routine, explanatory graphics, pictures that could apply to any asset. And so we will start actually in the next month working on a ventilator maintenance subproduct, ideally for remote clinics. These would be for biomedical technicians or nurses, people that might be in a stressed working condition, having to trouble solve a maintenance failure on that ventilator. So that's an example of being COVID informed. And then furthermore, utilities are essential workers. And so the need to produce power is immune to COVID, and what the show is going on for us. Gratefully.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Definitely using the opportunity or using the situation to create an opportunity, which is nice, and taking a positive aspect out of the entire situation. That's great. Putting COVID-19 aside, when you were first starting and growing the business, what were the biggest obstacles in the way, and what was your philosophy or special habits that you used to overcome those challenges and continue growing the business?
Oh man, there are so many challenges. You got to have, I think, number one, you got to know what makes you happy and be able to retreat to that. In my case, having a good morning ritual. I always sit quietly in the morning. I always drink tea by myself before other people get up. I always work out in the morning, and I like to get creative work done first, and I don't miss that. I do not miss that. And the other really important thing is I never look at my phone. I never lay in bed and read email or Slack or anything. Like, total torpedo to your mental health. And this is absolutely a mental health game. So otherwise, things that I have learned over the last few years, if you're approaching venture capital, it can be super challenging, because most of the people that are placing capital have not been in the position of starting a company. And so it's really easy to talk to a founder and sort of with a cool arm's length say, oh, your revenues aren't high enough, or oh, we think you should have performed more diligence on this factor. Like you're going to get a lot of sort of uninformed pushback, I would say, from some investors, and that can be enormously frustrating because they just have no idea how hard everyone is working on the team. At the same time, they're trying to make an assessment if they should place capital or not. So I learned to have pretty thick skin and also to lean into the criticism. If you're getting criticism, it's so easy to be defensive and just, talk to yourself and your team about why you're probably right. But instead, I'm going the opposite direction and saying, okay, tell me more. What else would you want to see if this is falling short? How else could we stand up to this? Similarly, I am learning about how critical it is to have a sponsor, not just somebody that believes in you and a mentor, but a sponsor, someone that will take your cause and your company to the people that they care about and actively advocate for you. I think public speaking has been a critical thing because so much of how social proof works is just guaranteeing and discerning if we like how the person looks and sounds. We know that leads to lots of bias, but that seems to be the cycle that we're currently stuck in as a society. So we'll just have to try to be successful in that. And then finally, something that started this year that I'm super psyched about is devoting more time to audiobooks and reading about our sector. And so I've been just like in every waking moment while folding laundry, while preparing dinner for my family, I will be listening to something in the background and just absorbing what I can, keeping a Google Doc of notes about that book and becoming a better leader.
Great. And on that note, what's your advice to other entrepreneurs out there who are kind of in the same boat, trying to manage both being, a good husband or a good wife and also being a good, executive for their startup? What's your biggest advice to those people?
Well, I'm sure everybody has unique knowledge about this, and I would love to hear some tips and tricks myself. I'm not sure every day I'm being my best self as a wife and a mom, but I think these things have helped. Number one, an early start. I became pregnant the day that I started 60 Hertz. So having all of this birth in my life at the same time was kind of a cosmic event. Or it was within the same week or so, so my daughter Bingit was delivered as our pilot was taking off. Unfortunately, my co-founder kind of took the reins for 6 weeks there, actually probably closer to 2 months, so that I could have that time with my family. But it's nonetheless been quite a balancing act over the years. And so, but these things have helped. I really never work on Sunday. In order to have some life balance and really just be with them and recollect myself a bit. I am trying and striving to have like an absolute cutoff at the end of the day and not work a second shift after bed, after I put my daughter down, so that my husband and I can hang out and watch movies or just chat. More often, we usually sit on the couch with our laptops together, which is not great, but kind of where we are with it right now. And I am so grateful. My husband is a creative and has a huge sense of humor and knows how to love me, even though I can be gripey and stressed out. So I think picking a remarkable partner I'm so grateful that I have Nathaniel.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, Piper, really enjoyed hearing about 60 Hertz and obviously about the personal habits you keep. Something that I'm curious to know is what are the plans for if there are any plans set in stone for expanding throughout Alaska and then also beyond Alaska, right? Obviously I'm sure you've seen you see the potential, right, use case for this technology, all over the world. So I would just love if you could talk to us a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, thanks, RUMEER. So I have said from the beginning that Alaska is a proxy for the developing world. On my first date with my husband, we flew to a community way, way north. It's actually where the land bridge from Russia would have connected with North America at some point, a community called Point Hope. And I got out of a little float plane. I got out of a just little small plane. The rain was like blowing sideways. It was like blowing snot out of my, and I, was just so excited to meet my husband up here, and we were going to go on a trek. And I really thought I'd flown to the end of the earth. Like, I just had no idea about the living conditions in Alaskan villages. That was my first experience with it. And it's something that needs Americans' attention. We know that our Native communities are very disadvantaged, and this was no different. So recognizing that the value of helping people maintain remote infrastructure applied not only in Alaska, but all over the world, I was very grateful and lucky to have the investment from Factor E, one of our primary investors, and they have a thesis about emerging markets. So we are gratefully now expanding. We're just about to close our 20th customer, and in different segments and geographies. And so we have now a company that is doing rooftop solar in Kathmandu. We have a program that will be on a contract with an original equipment manufacturer who's deploying in Suriname. We just closed our first customer in sub-Saharan Africa, actually last week. We have an opportunity. We just closed with one of our oil field services companies for a product that they're deploying, and then have a contract in Colombia. So the opportunities for us really are expanding, and we're super psyched because we knew from the beginning that this was possible. And to now see the validation that the market is interested in our product and that it's going forward is incredibly heartening and so fun. So fun. I got tears in my eyes the other morning because we created a new page of the app, a new screen on the app. I get to see them as they come out, and it has an African operator. The profile picture is of a man from Benin, and the checklist are for his renewable assets in Africa. And it's like, that's what we've been hoping for. We knew that it was possible, and now we're finally getting there.
No, that's like very amazing. You've obviously like taken it upon for the company to expand all over the world. I'm sure that expanding to all these different places requires a lot of managing a lot of moving parts, right? A lot of partners, a lot of people on the team. What's the plan for 60 Hertz in terms of expanding the team and really being able to manage the scale so you guys can maintain this momentum?
It's a perceptive question. So we've raised 1.3 in capital right now, and are aiming to raise another 1.5 to 2 million early next year. And that capital will be for further expansion. It's not growth. It's not like at a B level, a B raise, but it's going to be for that growth. So we need to hire more people. I've been on a number of calls with mentors and other founders to say, like, how do you know when to bring on another customer success associate, or how do you know when to bring on another product engineer? And it's tricky because you have this balance, like, of not wanting to increase your fixed costs in terms of payroll because people are expensive. At the same time, when your team hasn't taken a day of vacation since January and people are just tired, and we all are right now, you can't ask someone. There's just a limit to how much we can all ask of one another, in which case you do need another person. But then the cost of hiring people, the cost of managing them, I mean, that all increases exponentially. I will say that I am not great at hiring people. If anything, we've determined that I see the best in everybody very quickly, and meet people at barbecues, and meet people delivering me groceries, and I'm like, I want to hire you. And so we need to go through a better hiring process on this. And we've shifted up, and I have now a hiring panel when we make those decisions. But certainly managing growth. So I guess the short answer is grow as hard as you can, as fast as you can, using the existing staff, and to a certain extent, 1099 resources, so part-time people. I like that too, because then you can test out what someone's capacity and skill set is without having to fully hire them, sort of taking a model that Amazon had at one point, where they said, look, you can come work for us part-time, but it's not a sure deal, and we'll hire you if it goes well. And that's in a way why I like outsourced resources.
No, I definitely think that's going to be more common, in my opinion, as now that working remote, and it's easier. There's an easier interoperability between someone who wants to give work and a business that wants to take work, and that type of dynamic will increase, I feel. You mentioned kind of balancing, right, the health of the team versus the growth of the team, and kind of like keeping costs down low. What do you think the key principles are of 60 Hertz culture from an internal standpoint? You obviously seem like a very charismatic, empathetic leader. I would love to hear, your thoughts around that as well.
So, man, team is a big deal. I have new appreciation for that because we grew from like three and a half people last December to now we're at 9 full-time and a total of, really functionally 15 people, given some full-time, part-time people, 1099 work. So culture is everything. We revisit our values every month at our all-hands staff meeting. These values include servant-mindedness, humility, curiosity, bravery, because every day so many people on this team are doing things that they definitely have never done before, don't know how to do, or kind of scared they're going to mess up. But that bravery is just so fundamental to our success. It's completely fine for people to take risks here. We have also a new value that is consent to unlimited good for all. And that's kind of a bold one. In fact, we wrestled with it on the team. Consent for unlimited good for all. Am I okay consenting? Like, am I really ready to consent that there is unlimited good for all, especially our users who are in places where it looks awfully poor and it looks like there's not a lot of opportunity. But we believe that this software platform and the values and beliefs that we hold about ourselves and our users absolutely are shaping the future that we're going to be experiencing. So similarly, if there is someone on the team who is violating these cultural norms, who is not striving for the competence and the hard work that are also part of our values, then we may have to let them go. Similarly, that if there's an activity that is falling outside of our integrity, then that needs to be called out and addressed. So it's both upholding the values as well as letting people know if there's an inconsistency.
Great. Quick question I had. Why should an entrepreneur or professional want to go to Alaska to either start a business or work for a startup?
Oh, why should a professional or an entrepreneur want to go to Alaska to work for a startup here? So much to say about that. Being relatively new to Alaska myself, I have great hopes about other people finding their path here and finding their life here. And here are 3 reasons why. Number 1, Alaska is a great place for women. There are a lot of female leaders here. In fact, somebody even approached me for an article that I don't think they ever published saying like, what is it about women in Alaska? And I couldn't tell you, but I will say when I was in college, I was a Nordic skier. I was a very bad Nordic skier, but they needed an extra body on the team. And so I got to walk on, and It was entirely populated. The Nordic team was entirely populated by women and from Alaska. And they could change the chains on a huge ski van in like blinding snow, and they all could like play musical instruments. One of them had her own salmon fishing boat by the time she was 18, which is a considerable financial investment. Like, they were all just these powerhouses that were capable and Renaissance people. And so I don't know what it is about, maybe there's an equalizer in the weather, maybe it's because we see other women doing well, but there are a lot of, I have been supported by a number of women here in leadership positions at the top of their organization. Awesome. So that is a huge plus, and I think something that someone should research and figure out what's going on here. Number 2, Alaska has a great amount of open space, and if with remote work, why would someone stay in a very, especially in COVID times, in a very confined, tight space when we have a phenomenal trails network in Anchorage, when we have, kind of an emerging cool hipster scene? Anyway, I'm feeling bullish about Anchorage, despite having, there's downsides and drawbacks, of course, but I'm optimistic about the future here. And I say Anchorage only because the majority of Alaska's population of only 700,000 people lives right in Anchorage. And then the third point
Right.
is that the problems to solve here are really different and really interesting. Entrepreneurship loves problems, right? Entrepreneurs love things that others have overlooked that they want to solve. And so the kinds of issues that need to be addressed that arise from a natural resources extraction perspective, that arise from a remoteness perspective, that arise from a really strong impetus of our military in Alaska. I just think this is a place where wandering around, people start seeing and noticing things that they never would have in the lower 48. Perhaps I'm projecting my own experience, but if you want to start like an app to find a coffee, this is not the place to do it. If you want to start an app to find some answer to a meaningful problem, then this is the place to do it.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing your perspective on that. I'm glad to hear that you're bullish on the Anchorage, Alaska region. I hope to see it continue to grow and flourish. Rumeer, do you have any more questions?
No, I just wanted to say that, you know, Piper, Artine and I were actually talking about how like beautiful it is in Alaska, and you know, and just like, you know, like you said, a lot of the open space, you know, it's I have never been there. Artine, you know, went many years ago, and you know, I was just saying how jealous I was because I would love to just get a chance and you know breathe the air over there because I know it's definitely something special.
Oh, thanks. I hope please look me up. Remind me, you know, come and take a little visit. Our COVID case is sort of low right at the moment, so I shouldn't say that, but there's a lot more freedom here.
Oh my God.
Yeah, true. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Piper, before we let you go, we want to thank you again. It's been an honor to speak with you. We really appreciate your time. But is there anything that you want to leave us with or tell our audience before we go ahead and end the interview?
Oh, well, again, it's really a pleasure to get to share the story, and especially hopefully with others that are aspiring to start their own companies or have already started. This is a path that I just had no idea how hard it would be or how rewarding, which of course sounds cliche, but I think it's a considerable deal. And as you're thinking about other companies to feature, if I could just put in a plug that other businesses that may not have the advantages of, you know, either skin color or gender as you're selecting founders, like this is a huge gift, what you're providing in terms of this publicity and coverage. And so maybe just giving some thought, you might know this, but Crunchbase recently released a report about where venture capital is going. And globally, only 40% of people starting companies have a woman on the founding team. And only 9% of venture capital right now is going to female founders alone. Sorry, 2.8%. Only 9% is going to a woman on the founding team, and only 2.8% is going to a single female founder. And so, you know, globally, that only adds up to like $195 billion last year went to male founders and $6 billion went to female founders. So it's just, it's incredibly challenging to raise the capital that I have and that other people like me have. And so I think that you would appreciate, just looking at both of you, I think you would understand and talking with you why this is important. So thanks for picking a company that might be kind of an outlier.
Of course, yes. We hope to pick a lot more companies like this, and you make excellent points about promoting female founders. That's definitely something that we love to do and we want to do more of.
Oh, right on. Right on.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks
All
a
right,
lot,
have a good
Piper.
one.
Thanks, Rumeer. Thanks, Artene. Appreciate it.
Of course. Bye.
Bye.